Today we come together to discuss Hamlet. And with us, as always, is our host and moderator, John Moore. You will get to know very well if you don't already. And if you don't already know, you should know and will get to know our artistic director, Kent Thompson, and the director of Hamlet. So would you please join me in making
Kent, in total, in 9 short years, is responsible for the commissioning of 37 new works for the American theater. He's placed him among very few people among the leaders in the development of new work. And I want to talk a little bit about the importance of that.
And we try to produce the production that is the playwright's, the best production we can serve the playwright on the play. And to be truthful in new play development, I think most plays reach their stride in their 3rd to 5th production. They don't reach their stride in their 1st production. I think Georgia McBride is kind of the exception. So we're also taking that risk that a play just may not work.
I think you've told me at one point that if you were to generalize it, that it's something like 40% more expensive to stage a new play.
Because you've also got to count in if you commissioned it, and if you did workshops, and if you added things, you know. So it is very expensive. Versus if 2, 3, 5, 10 of the theaters had done it, we would kind of know, oh, that's the way to do it. Georgia McBride is a very expensive production on the costume side to do. And it was also very expensive because we had to get it right. We had to make it authentic, that it looked like a drag queen, and several of them. And then we had to have people change characters multiple times and multiple sets.
You've often said that the way you define success in a new play program in many ways is there a continued life for your plays after they're presented in Denver? Some, as Kent said, some will never be done again, but many of them will find new life. We found out this weekend that for those of you who saw The Most Deserving in the fall, has been picked up and will have an off-Broadway debut in April.
It's really, for me, about what is our legacy, and my reasoning for doing classics and new plays is the classics give us this look at the world through the enduring issues that we seem to have as humankind, and the new plays give us a snapshot of today's world. And my dream is that my grandchildren will be forced to read these plays in high school.
I know that the buck stops with you. You pick the season. But can you talk a little bit about everybody who has a say or wants to have a say in that?
Oh, everybody has an opinion about which plays we should do. From my boss to the development director to the production staff to John Moore. And we try to reach out to as many as we can. We also have the surveys that people do after the readings. We also have people calling me online. They're trustees that really believe we should do X, Y, or Z. It's an enormous amount of input. It's really me juggling that with whatever intuitively I think is the best play, and also I think will have impact both with the audiences here, and will draw an audience, and then we'll have a future life.
What has the sort of diminishment of the mainstream media over the past 5 or 6 years, in what ways, what are the pros and the cons of that? I mean, there have got to be a few of both.
Well, I think they're mostly cons related to the fact that the coverage, particularly of performing arts in general, but of theater, has dropped precipitously. And so John continually banged the drum for theater throughout the region, not just for the Denver Center or Center of Attractions or whatever. And so I think we're in a gap period where I'm not sure it's going to come back, where we actually have a lack of media coverage. Our various audiences are used to getting information a certain way, and that's all changing.
You know, and I look around and there are preachers' kids all over the theater. Why do you think that the arts tends to be a place that draws kids like you?
Well, I think it's a couple of reasons. I think there's the rebellious side of being a preacher's kid and wanting to have a different kind of expression. But for me, it was really about, my father was a very well-known Southern Baptist preacher that had mega churches before the term existed. And he was not evangelical. And I think my father was an incredible storyteller. And my mother being a published historical biographer herself, I would sit in the back seat, and my dad, because the churches could be 11,000 members, or 7,000 members, or 14,000 members. So he was an amazing performer, and my mother was his editor, and she was very good at being at editing. He would ask her, well, what do you think of my sermon? And she would make the mistake every Sunday afternoon of telling him. So he would be kind of wired for 2 days. It would be like going to opening night and telling an actor, even if he or she had not done that well, you really ruined the show tonight. You know, whether you did or not, they would be crushed for weeks. And so it took me a long time and some therapy and some reconciliation to go, okay, my role model is my mother, not my dad. But I will never at opening night tell people something that, I mean, I won't lie, but I won't tell people something that is just to cut or to do that. And so I believe my job, in a way, is that I'm there to try to tell the story in lifetime with real bodies and action. And that's really what drew me. And I think that's what draws a lot of people that are preachers' sons. I went to William and Mary, and I had the joy and sometimes hardship. I'm 7 years younger than her, of acting in like 5 plays with Glenn Close, who went to William and Mary. But I think it was an evolution where I really realized I don't want to repeat it. I don't want to be on stage and repeat it, and some people do. And I actually, you know, after a show opened, and I had done shows that had 80 performances or 120 performances, and after about 2 weeks, I would drive myself crazy. I'd get stage fright, or I'd try to figure out how to make it better, and I realized I just didn't enjoy that experience. And you have to, as an actor, you have to want to enjoy the live experience.
But I want to get back to the PK thing as it relates to Hamlet, because the way that, you know, the religious beliefs sort of dictate actions in this play have never felt more clear to me. And I wonder if that's just me projecting your experience or Aubrey's on it. But
no, I think it's a conscious choice on my part, because the play has a deep sense of ethics and morality and religion and spirituality in it, and it deals with the issues of fate and faith. But there also, you know, there's the question in Hamlet continually about, okay, why don't you take action? And believe me, people like to call the play the great play of a man of inaction. And that's true on one level, but I thought, why doesn't he? And there's a complexity to that. One, I think he's young, he's brilliant, but he's not emotionally brilliant yet. Number two, it's hard to deal with your father dying and suddenly, and you're at university, and you probably never had a close relationship, but you've never had a bad relationship with your father. And number three, then your mother marries your uncle within 4 to 6 weeks. So for me, it was about how do you connect the dots about why he doesn't take action. And it's deeply religious in Shakespeare's time, because there was this belief that ghosts existed. You wouldn't have ghosts in other plays like Banquo and others. And there was a belief that they could come from either heaven or hell. They could be good, they could be bad. So I think if you take away the religious undertones of the piece and the ethical, moral undertones of the piece, you've suddenly lost Hamlet, a lot of Hamlet's motivations in the play for why he doesn't take action.
You really zeroed in on what I think a lot of people in your production especially are finding to be that crucial moment, that when Hamlet does have that opportunity to shank his uncle and make things right. When Hamlet comes to that conclusion, he says, wait a minute, if I do this when you're in the act of confession, you're going to go to heaven.
There is a lot of scholarship about that Hamlet has the ethics of or the morality more of heaven, and that Claudius is more the morality of the earth. You know, because he believes, why can't it be like on earth where, you know, you have enough money, you can buy your way out of anything. We have enough power. And Hamlet is still kind of stuck on what it means for eternity, for, you know, your soul.
Yeah.
I think the most frustrating part of Hamlet is there's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of unknowns in it. There's a lot of questions unresolved. And you know, even the famous speech "to be or not to be," it's actually the language is actually in a general higher level than it is about, I got my knife, I'm going to kill myself right now. And so it's baffled people for centuries why that's so. Why doesn't he just talk about suicide? And he does, but he doesn't. But again, the secret to that speech is he says that our fear of what is after, be it good or bad, is what makes cowards of us. Now, if you're not a deeply spiritual man on some level, you're lost when you have that speech, because how do you defend it? You know what I mean?
I also want to ask you about what is Shakespeare's problem with women? People watch Hamlet and they get so frustrated for Ophelia, not only for the character but for the actor, because her best stuff happens off stage. You know, we don't get to see her react to her father's death. She just comes in after having reacted off stage. She doesn't kill herself on stage, and so it feels like he's shortchanging some great moments for this character and for this actor. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that's true to Shakespeare, that we see the moment of greatest pain, which is not necessarily her death. We see her kind of in the most painful moment. Her death may be described, but I also think that the play is misogynistic in the sense that it's an extremely patriarchal world. In this world, women have so little control.
This is such a great opportunity for all of us because you've got the man here, and you can talk to him. You can ask about anything that's on your mind.
How do you work with the actor to develop what kind of Hamlet he's going to be?
When it works, it's a marriage made in heaven. And it worked this time really well because we both have a deep knowledge of the script, and he did a phenomenal amount of preparation, and he's very good with Shakespeare, and he came with most of his lines learned.
But if you could join me in thanking Ken for